One of the great things about VBA is that it can identify and handle errors, as long as you tell it to do so. And this is called error handling. So whenever an error occurs, VBA is going to search for any error handling statement. And then when it finds one, it's going to transfer control to that statement. In this lecture, I'm going to show you an example of the error goto statement. And you can use this to trap a runtime error. So for example, taking a look at this procedure, I have my onErrorGoTo statement at the beginning, before the code is even executed. So what this is saying is, if there is an error, then go to a line called error message. Now, I just made up that name of error message, and you can make up almost whatever name you want as well, as long as it starts with a letter, and then you can use letters or numbers, but again, no special characters or no reserved keywords. All right, so after my onErrorGoTo, I have the code that I want to run, and then after the code runs, you're going to want to type in either exit sub or exit function, depending on whether or not you're writing a sub procedure or a function. And then after that, but before you end your sub procedure, that's where you want to put your error handler. So you see I have error message again, followed by a colon. So this is called a line label. So you tell VBA in the beginning of your procedure where to go if there is an error, and then at the end of the procedure, that's when you put in your error handler. And in this case, mine is a message box that pops up that says an error has occurred. Please check your work. And the reason why I put exit sub or exit function after the code, but before the procedure ends, is that if there are no errors that occur in the code, I want to have the procedure exit before it gets to the error handler. All right, so let me show you how that works. Okay, so to test this out, I'm in the error handling file, and you can find this in the resources section for this lecture if you want to follow along or test it out afterward. And what I want to do in this file is to calculate the bonus off of everyone's total commission. I have this calculate bonus button here. I'll go ahead and give that a click, and you see I get a runtime error. Not only do I get this runtime error, but it kind of kicks me back into Visual Basic. And I really don't want my users to, 1, get a runtime error, and 2, get kicked back into Visual Basic, because that's when things get crazy. And that's when they can come in and possibly make changes to the code. So I want to trap that error, stop the code, and give the users a message to kind of help them out a little bit. So here's what I'll do. I'll go ahead and hit end. And you see here the reason why the error occurred was because instead of a total commission inside of E8, it's the letter M. All right, let me switch over to Visual Basic to show you how to create an error handler. All right, so at the top of my code and before anything gets evaluated, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my onErrorGoTo statement. So I'll go ahead and type that in. So I called my error handler here error message. So VBA is going to look for that in case there's an error. Now I need to go to the end of my code, so that's going to be in between the loop and the end sub. And I'm going to go ahead and type in exit sub. So remember, I'm putting exit sub here, so if there is no error that occurs, it's just going to go ahead and exit the procedure. But if there is an error that occurs, and I'll scroll this up a bit so you can see it a little bit better, I want to place my error handler here before the sub-procedure ends. So I will type in error message, which is my label, and you need to put a colon there afterward, letting VBA know that this is your label. All right, then on a new line, I'll go ahead, I want a message box to pop up, so I'll type in message box, and then I'll type in an error has occurred. Please check your work. All right, and that's all I'll do with the message box for now. So let me head on back to Excel and test this out. One more time, I'll click on Calculate Bonus. And there you are. So now, instead of being thrown back into Visual Basic, you and your user, you're going to get this message box that pops up. And when you close the message box, it keeps you here in Excel because it exited the sub-procedure. All right, let me switch back to Visual Basic and scroll down a bit. So again, when you want to trap your errors At the beginning of your sub procedure, before any code is run or evaluated, you want to put in your on error go to. You want to give your error handler a name. Then come down after the code ends. You want to put in either exit sub or exit function, depending on which one you're using. And then you want to put in your error handling code. Now here I just put a message box in, but you might want a message box or an input box asking people what to do next, or you might just want some other code to run.